Today, I'm going to show you how to create a visual interface like you see here using your Airtable base. So we'll take something that looks like this and turn it into this. There's a couple of things that we need to talk through before we get started, so let's go ahead and take a look. Here we have this great article just released by Airtable. They have their new interface designer. So this is a quick breakdown in terms of what you can expect with the interface designer. I'm going to walk through it step by step for you so that you can see how I pulled all of this together. One important thing to note before we dive in is the share feature. So in order for this to be visible, unfortunately, you have to have the people you're sharing it with as a collaborator. So you can't use this as a standalone website, but if you have a large team or an internal working team, you can use the interface designer and share this amongst your collaborators to give them a little bit better visualization. So now that we've gone through all that, let's walk you through how to build in the visual designer. The first thing we need is our database. So as you can see here, this is where I'm keeping track of all of the communities that I display on Community Finder, and I wanted to see how I could recreate that over here in Airtable. So once you have your database selected, you're going to come up here to the left and hit Interfaces. Now from here, if you click Learn More, that will take you over to that article where you can do a deep dive into all of the different questions you might have. This is just kind of a high level to let you see all the different things you can do. Let's go ahead and show you how to create a new one. So as with everything else, just hit Create New. You can name it whatever you would like or give it a description. And just like with the bases, you can pick your color and icon that you would like to have. Once you do all that, you just go ahead and hit Next. You can give it a description here and then hit Create New. You can see there are 4 options when you are first starting out with the designer. So you have the record view, the dashboard view, the summary view, and blank canvas. Now, depending on what type of data you're working with and how you're visualizing this, some of these first 3 might be applicable to you. I want to walk through the blank canvas today just to show you all of the different kind of tools and break down what you can do with it. So let's go ahead and select blank and then hit Finish. Now, as you can see, you have this nice little Add Element panel down here that allows you to add a whole bunch of different elements. Up at the top, we have the interface. Well, this is really the record that we created. Then you can give this a title, so you'd want to rename this to be Home or whatever title you're using, and then hit Done. Again, if you click Interface, you can go all the way back to Overview, and that'll bring you to this screen. This is where you can jump back in. Click Interface one more time, go all the way back to Overview here. This is also where you could rename the description. You can exit out of here if you would like to, or change things again. So if we go back into our home, we can see at the designer up at the top here, we have the preview button, which allows us to take a good look at things before we actually hit publish. And then we can also see what it looks like for different collaborators. Again, remember, important to note with this particular tool that these designs are only visible to collaborators. So you can't share this publicly. You would have to share it via email with anybody who's a collaborator on your base. And then finally, we have the publish button, which will allow us to publish all these changes. And of course, exit, which will take us out. All right, back into edit mode. And let's take a look at what we have here. So it starts with text, and let's drag that in. This is all drag and drop. So very easy to maneuver and manipulate around. You can make things larger or smaller. We have the narrow screen here or wide screen here. So pretty simple, not too much that you can do with it. In terms of text, you see all of the different options here, but very limited when it comes to styling. You are able to add in different lists, have basics like bold and italic, strike through. You can add code blocks and links, But again, when it comes to visual design, it's pretty basic. So just keep that in mind depending on what you're building it for. So that is the text element. If you want to remove it, you just go ahead and hit delete. Divider, again, works the same. You'd only have one option with this, wide or narrow. So you could put that whatever you want. You can also make it a little bit more narrow using your handlebar here. Next, we have the filter. Just drag that in here. Now you would need to pick your source. So for this, we're going to use this example. There's no connected elements, so the filter by itself isn't really as relevant. You're going to want to use the filter on top of other types of items. I'll show you what I mean here. Let's go ahead and delete that out. So if you want to use the filter, you could pull in the grid. As you can see, filter and sort are built in here, so it seems to be a much better use case for it rather than a standalone filter. Grid works very similar to how it does when you're sharing the different grids across your Airtable bases. Again, you would pick your source. So we're under this community and mentor sites, and then you can pick whichever database you're using. You can copy your views. So if you have a particular view that you've spent a lot of time building out in the grid form, you can copy that here. That's very handy. Here's where you can add in your filters just as you would with your regular base, sort your groups, and then the fields. Of course, you can remove what you don't want there. You can also set the row height and the colors and add a label on if you would like. So if this is something you would like to scale down and you're only showing a couple of columns where a label might be helpful, you can rename that to be whatever you would like here. So that is grid. Next is timeline. Again, I'm just dragging and dropping these in. Again, timeline is probably more relevant if you're using this for projects. As you can see, this goes through quarters, months, weeks, years, 5 years. So if you're doing projections, those types of things, this would probably be a more relevant table to use. Lots of different settings for filtering and grouping in here as well. Be sure you pick the appropriate table source. Perhaps with timeline for something like this, I could see what the featured communities were, whether or not they had been mentioned on social media, lots of those types of things. Again, from here, you can, pick the colors, you can pick the height, and you can also give this a label with any label text you would like here. Go ahead and delete the timeline out. After timeline, we have chart and number. I'm going to work at these in tandem just because they tend to go together. So again, the timeline, chart, and number, probably more relevant when you're working on a project or are dealing with actual numbers as opposed to some of the more resource-based items that I've been showing. So the chart might be relevant if you wanted to show breakdowns. There's lots of different options here: pie, line, scatter, pie, donut. Oh, I'm sorry, the first was bar. So you can choose that. You can choose your colors. Again, take a look at the different axes and break everything down. Give it a title or subtitle and make the different adjustments you would like here. As with all of the others previous, if you already had an existing view you wanted to copy, you could go ahead and do that here too. And count, pretty similar, a lot more scaled down. Just pick your source. So pick whatever you'd like, and then you can pick if you would like record count, field summary count, whatever you'd like to be counting from. You can also choose filters here as well. You can change the color of the text, pretty limited, but you are able to make those different changes if you would like. And then finally, we have probably what is going to come in most handy, which is the record picker. So let's delete out some of these others and walk through the record picker. So this particular record picker really allows you to build out from the base up. I would recommend starting with this if you have any sort of resource database and you're starting for a blank slate. Remember, we had those template options in the beginning as well, so you could always start with one of those. But be sure that when you choose the record picker, you pick the appropriate source, again, the appropriate view if needed, and filter and sort. If you're adding a label, you can do that here. So we could say, choose your community. Okay, there we go. And now once you see that record picker come in from the all elements, we have a lot of other options here. So now we can add in all of the fields from that particular record. So we can do community name, community site, and so on and so forth. You see all of the options applicable to that record. So all of your different fields from your base are available here for you. This will really allow you to build out your site. These are nice because they allow it to be view only or editable, and you of course can have a little bit of change in what the text size is. You can have labels on or off. So now that you know how to use all of the tools, let's take a look at what I have built. So remember, to find your interface, you just come up here to the left and click Interfaces, and it'll show you what's available. So the only published one we have is this Community Finder. We'll click on that. And here you can have multiple bases. So there are multiple interfaces. So for me, I only have this Community Finder. We'll click on that. Now, as you can see, I've gone ahead and added in a text element. So we'll come to all elements. I've added in the text element, large heading here, added in the record finder, record picker, and added in the sort, given it a label, and then added in the separate elements that I wanted. So the community field name, the image. Now under the image, there are a couple of different options here. So let's come over to the record picker and show you that. You'll see with this little caret here, this screenshot, we can either do a field, carousel, or hero. Pick whichever is most applicable to you. I went with the hero here just to show you visually what it would look like, but there is only one image. And as you can see, these are all editable or view only. So you can show however many attachments you would like as well. If you have, quite a few attachments but only want to show the first 3, you could put that here. Just make sure that that's how they appear in your attachments. From there, I went ahead and pulled in a couple more relevant fields, the founder name, which I left the label on, a quick description, the website, and the Twitter account. Now, there are a few options when it comes to some of these fields. As you can see, this has a gray background, so I've gone ahead and chosen that, but you could take that background off as well. That's not available on all fields, only a select few. And orange or a yellowish color is another one available in some fields as well. So you can see very, very limited in terms of styling, but if we go ahead and hit preview, here's what your collaborators would see and how they would interact with the site. Once you have everything as you like it, be sure you're checking out how other collaborators might see it. And once everything is finished, you can take it off preview and go ahead and hit publish. From here, if you didn't like the color icon you had chosen previously, you can go ahead and change that, as well as the name and description. You can see that here are my other items underneath this particular Community Finder interface. I didn't do anything with this home, so I'm not going to publish that. But if you were going to publish multiple things at once, you could do that here. Once you've selected everything that you wanted, go ahead and hit Publish Changes. And then in order for this to be visible with your collaborators, you'll need to hit Share. Remember, as long as you're sharing this with an email address, they will be added as a collaborator to the base or need to request access to be added. So keep that in mind, that this isn't a share separately. This is only for your collaborators. That is how you use the visual interfaces within Airtable. Hope this helps and can't wait to see what you build.